Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Welcome to Penn Vicarage. Lovely to see you. So glad that you could join us for our Bible talk this morning. Now, we are working our way through the Gospel of John, and we're in chapter 10 this morning. Context-wise, we're not actually quite sure. It happened sometime between the Feast of Tabernacles and in the autumn, and sometime before the Feast of Dedication in the winter. So sometime between autumn and winter. That's sometime around about then. We're also not exactly sure who Jesus was speaking to at the time when he said it, or even where he was when he said it, but it doesn't matter because it's a good reading anyway. Now, in recent chapters, Jesus talked about himself. He said, I am the bread of life, after he fed the 5,000 with the bread and fish and so on. He talked about himself as being the light of the world in that light festival in the Feast of Tabernacles. He's also talked about himself as being the water of life. Anyone comes to me who's thirsty, and so on. Today, the image is very different. We're not talking about light and bread anymore. Now we're into sheep and fields, and we're out in the fields of shepherds and sheepfolds and that kind of thing. To give you just a little bit of context about shepherding in those days, sheep in those days, obviously, during the day, they'd be out gaining pasture out in the field. At night, they'd stay the night in a place called a sheepfold, which was usually a walled structure, but it could have been a cave. There was a one way in and one way out. And it was a place of safety where sheep could stay overnight before going out the following day. It was a place of safety from wolves and dangerous animals and that sort of stuff. So it was a place of safety where sheep could stay overnight in a place called a sheepfold. One place, one way in, one way out, and that's it. So, John's Gospel, chapter 10, verses 1 to 10. Lovely words these, so just enjoy them and just enjoy them. Jesus said, Truly, truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he's brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again Jesus said to them, Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to kill and steal and to destroy. I came, they may have life and have it abundantly. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, when I was a kid, there used to be a program on called One Man and His Dog, which was, there was a guy called Phil Drabble, who was a shepherd from a place called Abbas Bromley, not far from where I was brought up. And it was all about a guy, and he's moving his sheep around using his sheepdogs and cajoling sheep from one place to another. And that's what it was all about. And it was a bit of a competition as well. Now, we were always taught, when I was ordained, we in the book of the ordination, we were told to set the Good Shepherd as a pattern for our ministry. And unfortunately, thereby hangs a problem, because the image we had of shepherding in our mind was Phil Drabble with his sheepdogs, cajoling and driving sheep from place to place. And so we kind of thought that that's what ministry was about. It was about cajoling, about encouraging, about, as somebody once said, going at the pace of the slowest person and driving and encouraging people from behind. And thereby hangs the problem, because Middle Eastern shepherds weren't like Phil Drabble. Whereas British shepherds drive sheep and encourage people from behind, Middle Eastern shepherds do the opposite. Middle Eastern shepherds lead. They lead and the sheep follow. So they lead their sheep out of the sheepfold in the morning, they lead them around the field, and they lead them back into the pen to a place of safety at night. They're not followers, they're not drivers, they're not encouragers and cajolers. They're actually leaders, people who show the way. They lead. And actually that, I believe, is more what Christian ministry is really about. It's not about following society, it's about leading a community. It's about showing the way. Jesus is our leader, and we follow him. And actually in community, in churches, Christian shepherds should be people who lead, people who guide, people who show the way. Actually, as somebody once said, you can call yourself what you like, but if no one's following you, you're not a leader. I've heard all sorts of stuff said about this, but at the end of the day, a Christian pastor, a Christian shepherd is actually somebody who leads. Jesus leads us and we follow. And Christian ministers should be leaders that people follow behind as well. And actually in society, we should be, as a church, we should be showing the way. We should be leading. We should be at the front, not behind. We should be at the front. Because actually that's a more biblical, a more proper model of what Christian ministry is about. If we're about shepherding, then actually we're about leading. So I think that's really important. So Jesus didn't have any sheepdogs. The second thing it's about, he says, the good shepherd, the sheep know the voice. In the sheepfold overnight, there would often be several flocks. It wasn't one fold per flock. There would be several flocks could be kept in a sheepfold at night. And in the morning, the shepherd would stand up and would talk. And his sheep, or presumably his sheep, would know the voice, and they'd follow their shepherd. And that's what they did, because they knew the voice. Also, I gather each shepherd gave each sheep a name. So they call each sheep by name. And I think actually this is a wonderful image of us and Jesus. Jesus is our good shepherd, and we know his voice. And actually he's the one that leads us through life. But also, because we are special to him, we've all got a name, and he knows us, and we are individually called by name. As it says in the Bible somewhere, I have called you by your name, you are mine. We are Jesus' property. He loves us. He's given us a name, and he knows us all by name. We're not just a flock. We're not just a load of sheep. Actually, to him, we are known personally. We're known by name. Jesus is your good shepherd and my good shepherd, as well as our good shepherd. We are all precious to him. We recognize his voice, his loving voice, calling us and guiding us through life, like the shepherd leads the sheep in the Bible. But also, he knows us by name. We are all personally and intimately special to him. You are special to God and Jesus. I am special to God and Jesus. We are called by name. We know his voice, and he calls us all by his name. That's the second thing. So firstly, we have a Christian pastor, shepherd is a leader, not a follower, not a cajoler, but actually a leader. But secondly, also, we are all individually special to him. We know his voice, and he's called us all by name. But thirdly, we've got this bit about the gate. And this, I think, what Jesus is saying here is that there are good shepherds and there are bad ones as well. He talks about the good shepherd being the person who enters by the sheep by the gate. There was only one entry into a sheepfold. You went in and out. To go in and out properly, you went through the gate. Anybody else came in, a thief or a robber or a bandit or whatever, would come over the walls or whatever. A shepherd, the shepherd of the sheep, would come in by the gate, which is why he says, I am the gate. And he's pointing out here that there are good and there are bad people looking after sheep. And Jesus said that there are bad ones. Like in the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, God talks about how appalled he is by the bad shepherds who don't care about the sheep, but only care about what they can get out of them, only care about plundering them and in it for themselves. But Jesus says, on the other hand, I am the good shepherd, I came that they may have life, and life in all its fullness. So the thief or the robber only cares to try and steal, to grab, and to get for themselves. Whereas the good shepherd, Jesus, is in it for the sake of the sheep. He came that they may have life, and life in all its fullness. And so, three wonderful things from this reading this morning. Firstly, we're reminded that actually Jesus is our good shepherd, and if we want to be shepherds in our community, are leaders. And Jesus leads us. And Christian pastors, Christian ministers is all about leadership and about showing the way to the congregation, and in the church, showing the way. We should be leaders in the world and in the church. Secondly, to be told that we are all individually precious to God. We know his voice, but he knows us all by name. He knows you personally. He cares about you very much. We are all special to him, and he knows us all by name, and we know his voice. And to remind us also that unlike the thief, the robber, the bandit, Jesus came because he loves us. He wants the best for us. He wants you and I to have life, and life in all its fullness. And so may you know that abundant life in your life today. God bless you.